So Prince Harry and his wife Meghan are set to return to the UK within days. The Sussexes are ending their 6-year stay in California and relocating to Britain with their 2 children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, who have enrolled to start school in September. According to reports, one of the reasons for the move is that Meghan has been offered a role in an upcoming entertainment project in the UK. Now, the Duchess of Sussex is best known for her stint in the US legal drama Suits, where she played Rachel Zane, paralegal and love interest to lead character Mike Ross.
Mike Ross? Hi. I'm Rachel Zane. I'll be giving you your orientation.
Wow, you're pretty.
Good. You've hit on me. We can get it out of the way that I am not interested.
No, I'm sorry. I wasn't hitting on you.
Trust me. I've given dozens of these, and without fail, whatever new hotshot it is thinks that because I'm just a paralegal, that I will somehow be blown away by his dazzling degree. Let me assure you, I won't.
Yeah, Meghan left the show following her engagement, of course, to Prince Harry. Joining me now is Brontë Coy, a senior entertainment reporter and royal correspondent from news.com.au, who got the exclusive scoop. Hi to you, Brontë.
Hello.
So when you say when we say an upcoming entertainment project in the UK, do we have any idea what that might mean?
Well, this is the big question, isn't it? As you say, I broke this news yesterday. What I do know is that she has been offered an acting role. It's not behind the camera. It is in front of the camera. And as we just heard in that intro, the last time we saw that from her was as Rachel Zane in Suits. So we don't know what the role is. We know that it could be a TV series. It could be a film. Britain obviously produces a lot of high caliber productions. So, this being a base for this is not that big a surprise. I think what is coming as a surprise to people initially is, of course, she did step away from that world. And even the work she's done since has all been the Netflix docuseries and things that are more of that vein. Although we did see a little clue that maybe this was something she'd be interested in again. At the end of last year, it came out that she had a very small cameo as herself in an upcoming Hollywood blockbuster starring Brie Larson and Jack Quaid. So I think that's probably the first clue now, with the benefit of hindsight, that this was on its way. But also more broadly, the Harry and Meghan decision to move back to the UK with the kids, enroll them in school, has come as a big surprise to many people. But this is such an important part of the puzzle. We know about Harry wanting to spend time with his family. We know about them having a great interest in the 2 children being in the British education system. But the question was, what will Meghan do? And now this has obviously answered that question.
Yes, absolutely. What though? How is she going to rate it as an actor? I say that with no axe to grind. That clip sounded pretty good to me. I've never seen Suits. Is she deemed to be a good actor?
This is the thing. When Meghan stepped away from Suits, and I say this as someone who was actually a huge Suits fan, great show, by the way, you should watch it. But when she stepped away, this was a hugely popular show, but she was part of an ensemble cast. And, at that point in her career, having tried very hard for many years, it's a grueling industry, she never quite made it into sort of blockbuster movie space. She'd had bit parts, very small roles in films prior to that. So, look, was it ever going to really take off? All these series always do inevitably wind down. I think Suits actually only lasted another season or so after she left. And so the question was always, how great an actor is she, and could she have carved out that huge Hollywood career? We never will know without the Prince Harry aspect of it, because, of course, we now know she's become a public figure in a very different way. But I do have to say, people obviously have very strong opinions of Meghan in either direction now. And I think there's absolutely a degree of bravery here in stepping back into the arena to take this on and show off her skills, because she is going to be a lightning rod for criticism no matter what she does.
Well, exactly. And, within that, there does lie some concern, I suppose, from many people. I do understand that there is, whether you like it or not, there is a huge appetite of interest in Harry and Meghan. One would just hope that the coverage will be kind. But coming back into this, this is a place where they, they were unhappy with press treatment. And clearly, the press are not going to not report on them. So what does that tell us, do you think?
I think that a lot of things have changed over the years. I mean, I often refer to that period when they left Britain as sort of it was the ugly breakup and the wash up immediately afterwards. And I think all these years on, cooler heads have obviously prevailed a little. After a breakup, you can get nostalgic a few years on for the aspects of something that you did miss. I think that, Harry has, he has settled a lot of his grievances in that he does feel he's gotten his side of the story out there in numerous ways over the years, as we very well know. He obviously has a relationship with his father, which is tracking along quite well, and they are in good communication. And I think at this point in his life, particularly with two young kids, this is a time for him to sort of make that reconnection with his British roots and with his wider family. I know that's something that's upset him a lot to be so far away from the wider family, which, as I always like to emphasise, very much includes the Spencers. There's such a focus on the Waleses for obvious reasons and the rift there. But, he does have a much broader network. And I think that is one part of it. I think that, having tried to carve out a career in a few different ways and prop themselves up commercially after leaving the royal family, it's not all panned out. Some things have, some things haven't. But I think now is a good time for, if Meghan has been missing acting, it's a great time for her now to step back into something that she actually does know quite well, that has proven very successful for her in the past.
Yeah, I'll get on to William in a second, but can you just clear up then for people who don't follow this as closely as you do? So we heard from the King that he was not informed until Sunday. He's made it clear that Prince Harry is not going to be his priority. What does that mean?
It's interesting wording, isn't it? We've basically the big question when it came out that Harry and Meghan were moving back here was, well, when did the King find out? And they visited him, of course, as we now know, just last month. And a move like this, you would have assumed, was in the works for some time. But look, everything I've heard is that it wasn't a conversation that happened back then. And actually, once the ball started rolling on this whole process of them moving, it actually was only quite recently. I think this offer came in quite recently, or came in as a more cement prospect that they would go, that she actually would sign on to it. I think that has been quite recent. I think that is the reason that it didn't come up last month. Maybe it wasn't all, as firmed up as obviously it is now with the kids' school as well. But in terms of how the palace is going to react to this, Harry and Meghan, we're at pains to hear all the time that they are private citizens, of course, and that's the life they'll be living when they're over here. It is as private citizens, and that Harry is on good terms with his father. But obviously it raises questions about, was it an attempt for them to have closer ties to the royal family? Does Harry want to come back to official duties? That's from everything I'm hearing, that is not the case at all. It is just him wanting to reconnect with his wider network of loved ones. But I think that the King, obviously, exactly as you just mentioned with those lines, he is in a position of not just being a father, not just being a grandfather. Of course, he's also the head of an institution. So this is it's a very delicate line, as it is always with the royal family. It's not just a family, it's also a business. And I think that is something they are now going to have to navigate.
On the subject of his relationship with William, I mean, clearly there was some friction. We don't know where that lies. Excuse me, right now, how that lies right now. But is there some hope that because they're not working royals, because they're not kind of pressed up against each other and into awkward photo ops all the time, that there is some space for perhaps a thawing of that relationship?
I think there has been no real appetite for it in any direction, or it just didn't seem something that was likely to happen while Harry was living in the US. I've certainly not heard that there is any top priority of them getting in a room together. But, I mean, obviously, it's more realistic if he's living in Britain and they are suddenly in closer proximity and there are family events, etc. This is going to raise that question. I think if it ever is going to happen, it's going to happen under these circumstances, as opposed to Harry being in the US. I don't think they probably wouldn't have spoken again until a very big family occasion down the line. But I think that is something people are going to focus on. Something that William will probably not be thrilled about is, of course, whenever there's Harry and Meghan are somewhere and he's got an event on nearby or is within miles, then of course it puts that scrutiny on it. People are then always saying, well, they're so close together, will they see each other? He probably won't be pleased to have that speculation, so much more frequently now. So Harry was only coming here a few times a year previously.
Exactly. Brontë, thank you very much. Very comprehensive as ever. It's Brontë Coy, senior entertainment reporter and royal correspondent from news.com.au. Got that exclusive scoop. Now, the family security concerns are another key feature of the story, of course, with the Times reporting that there are no plans to provide provide Harry and Meghan with taxpayer-funded armed police protection. And I think it was Andy Burnham, wasn't it, who said it was a private matter. Joining me now is Richard Aitch, former member of the Royal Military Police Close Protection Unit and author of Close Protection, A Closer Observation of the Protection Equation. Welcome to you, Richard.
Good afternoon.
What do you make of the Times report? No plans for funded armed police protection.
Sorry, this is the first I've heard of it, actually, but it doesn't surprise me. Previously, during Megxit, the police stance on the issue was such that it's going to be delivered on a case-by-case basis. It's justified by particular and specific circumstances as part of a bespoke arrangement. However, we are in unprecedented realms at the moment. The actual departure from royal duties was unprecedented. The situation regarding the removal of police protection is unprecedented. And here we have another unprecedented situation where Harry and Meghan and family are returning to the UK, and the entire security issue that has been so highlighted in the media so much over recent years is now back into the public limelight and being discussed again. The situation when Prince Harry first left the departed royal duties and went over to the US, his police protection in the UK was immediately stopped in its entirety. And to my mind, this is abhorrently wrong, because it wasn't based on any threat and risk assessment. And to me, it was part of a retributive justice for stepping down from royal duties and leaving the UK. RAVEC, the Royal Executive Committee, decides on who gets what in terms of protection and how that what appears. They are responsible for delivering protection to prime ministers, designated members of parliament, and so on, as well as members of the royal family. And of course, this responsibility and their policy actually includes former prime ministers. Now, we have quite a few former prime ministers now. I don't know exactly what the number is, but it could even be in double figures. And police protection is being provided to them. They are no longer in public service, and yet they are receiving, at great cost to the taxpayer, police protection. Now, Prince Harry is still a member of the royal family. The threat against him hasn't actually changed.
Yeah.
The risks to those threats may have changed slightly in terms of appearance at royal venues and functions and so on. But the actual threats to him have not changed. They always remain at a standard level.
Yeah. So don't you think then that really ultimately there's a bit of grandstanding going on, perhaps, or rules is rules, whatever it might be, but there's going to have to be some kind of compromise, some kind of blended approach?
When Harry left his royal duties, I was hoping that would be some form of police oversight. A member of the senior police protection command who actually provided an oversight element to his security, in the least. However, I don't believe that was conducted whatsoever. It actually beggars belief, the situation that we are in. The situation regards Harry and Meghan and the family coming back to the UK is one where there's a duty of care. I mean, you don't need to be a security genius to make any determination that the level of security must be provided to Harry. Now, the immediate rebuttal of the police at the time was such that we can't actually allow the UK taxpayer to put this up. And yet Harry offered to pay. And the rebuttal to that, of course, a subsequent response was, well, the police are not for sale. We'll be setting a precedent to that effect. There has to be a workaround solution.
Yeah.
There has to be a collaboration. And I'm in full agreement that the UK taxpayer shouldn't fulfil the entire bill here, because if there's no service to the UK as a whole, and solely Harry and Meghan are entering solely commercial avenues, then why should the UK taxpayer fit the bill? However, he is a member of the royal family. He is still going to attend specific royal functions and venues every so often. And even that, the police say on a case-by-case basis, police protection would be provided in that instance. What we have now is a knee-jerk response, ad hoc, where it's an unbalanced approach to the mitigation of threat and risk.
Just finally then, why do you think he's being treated differently?
It's retributive justice. I cannot think of any other reason for this. Now, there are some intelligent people, well-experienced people in Ravek, a senior police protection command. And if you were to ask them, I'm sure, behind closed doors, Prince Harry, what is your view on this? Should he receive police protection? What has happened to the threat against him? I'm quite sure and certain that they would actually support, yes, he needs security, without a doubt. It doesn't take a security genius to actually come to that conclusion. He must have security. Now, there's a huge void between private sector and government level protection. There's the government's private security industry authority, the SIA. They regulate the private security industry. And for the past 20 years, they have imposed an unfit for purpose level of training for close protection, where any client receiving that service is in effect rolling the dice. There's no threshold benchmarks to entering the industry, and the level of training is not fit for purpose. Right. So what Harry is now going to enter into the realms of, he's going to be employing private sector close protection in the majority of the team at much expense to him, and yet the level of service is going to be very questionable. Not to mention the lack of firearms, the lack of the police and law ability to create sterile areas away from the general public, the ability to control traffic flow and so on.
Yeah.
He's a quagmire of epic proportions here.
Absolutely. I think it's clearly a huge issue. And I don't think that this is the end of it. Richard, thank you very much for talking to us. Very interesting. Richard Aitch, former member of the Royal Military Police Close Protection Unit.